Hi, welcome to Thinking About Stuff. Today we're thinking about stuff. What are we thinking about today? I've been thinking a lot about billionaires recently. According to Wikipedia, there are currently 585 billionaires in the United States and 2,208 in the world. That's nothing. There are 3 times as many people still subscribed to the Grimm subreddit. And yet, billionaires are an inescapable presence in our society, both in terms of airtime and political and cultural influence, while Grimm fans haven't been relevant since the landmark Supreme Court case R. Grimm versus the state of California back in 2009. Some billionaires are treated as the good guys. Some are worshipped as genius heroes. Some become the focus of conspiracy theories, while others fund the intellectual dark web. There's a whole lot of stuff to think about when it comes to billionaires, and a lot of very different videos could be made about them both as a category and as individual people. But what I've been thinking about is just how totally insane the existence of billionaires is to begin with. As of the making of this video on May 24th, 2018, the richest person in the world is Jeff Bezos. It's Jeff, founder of Amazon. According to Wikipedia, his net worth is $130.9 billion. And there's no doubt that Jeff worked extremely hard to get where he is today. And his Wikipedia page is sure to mention that he worked at a McDonald's in high school, implying a pulled up by his own bootstraps, self-made man, American dream kind of story, even though he went to Princeton and his parents gave him $300,000 when he first started Amazon after he'd already spent like 8 years working on Wall Street and hedge funds and stuff like that. But my own incurable cynicism aside, Jeff is clearly a talented, hardworking, smart guy, and it's indisputable that he changed the world, like, so much. Do you remember when you had to get out of bed and put on clothes and like go to a store, and then you had to go to the cashier and she just stared at you because all you had was a cucumber and a bunch of latex gloves, and you try to laugh it off and you're like, it's for an art project, because it was for an art project, but she's staring at you and you can tell she doesn't believe that it's for an art project, and then you just start going through like all the kinds of things she could be imagining you doing with a cucumber and latex gloves, and then you start thinking about what you could do with a cucumber and latex gloves, and then you're like, why didn't I buy a cucumber and latex gloves earlier? I don't think any of us understands how much money that is. I think for the normal human brain, a number like 130.9 billion is unimaginable. All of our conceptual intuitive systems of kind of grasping amounts and size fail us completely long before that point. But I do think it's important that we try to understand it. Otherwise, billionaires get this sort of pass as just being lumped in altogether with the rich. But billionaires are so much richer than the rich. Like, billionaires should not exist. That's my thesis. Billionaires shouldn't exist. But don't get caught up on that. I'm not like a crazy Marxist. We'll get into my pitch for Billionaire Hunger Games later. But I do think it's important to try to understand just how much money that is, so that we can kind of understand more broadly the level of influence billionaires have on our systems. So, 130.9 billion. That's 130,900,000,000. Let's try breaking that down. Right now, in the internet cultural context, the sign of wealth seems to be a Lambo, which is like what every crypto guy is going to buy as soon as he gets rich. A Lambo costs $200,000, roughly. There's different kinds of Lambos, but they revolve $200,000. Jeff could buy 654,500 Lambos. That's a lot of Lambos. But that number I think is also too big for the human brain, so we can try to break that down even further. A Lambo, which I hate hearing myself say that, I'm going to stop saying that. A Lamborghini is about 15 feet long. So if Jeff has 654,500 Lamborghinis, that's 9,817,500 feet worth of Lamborghini, which is about 1,859 miles of Lamborghini, which is more than enough to make a solid line of car stretching from Mexico to Canada. But just in case you don't happen to think about amounts of money in terms of how long of a line of Italian sports car could you buy, let's try breaking it down a different way. In the United States, The median personal income for someone working a full-time job is $881 a week, or $45,812 a year. And that's only the people with full-time employment, which only accounts for a bit over half of the US working population, so the actual median personal income is likely much lower. In order for a person with a full-time job in the United States making the median annual income to have as much money as Jeff Bezos has now, they would have to work for 130.9 billion divided by 45,812 years, which comes out to about 2,857,330 years of work, with no expenses, putting everything you earn into savings. Homo sapiens, the species that we are, has only been around for 300,000 years. And there weren't even any Homo anything until 2.5 million years ago, when the first Homo habilis walked out of the savannah, and that means that if the very first Homo habilis got a full-time job making the median individual income of an American in 2018, and put it all into savings and worked through the entire evolution of the human species and the development of history and civilization right up until this very day, she still would not be worth as much as Jeff Bezos. Okay, but maybe you're thinking something like, yeah, but it's not like some line cook at McDonald's or some social media manager is working all that hard or doing anything positive for society. What about people who do real hard productive work? Well, a sergeant in the Army with 6 years of experience makes $35,103.60 annually, and that's like $10,000 less than the value I was using before, and I would say that that's pretty definitely at least hard work, and lots of people think that it's valuable work. But let's go further and take someone who works hard, does something positive for society, and is solidly in the top 5% of earners. Neonatologists, the doctors who save dying babies, make, in America, an average of $290,853 annually. But let's round that up to a cool $300. A neonatologist would have to work 436,333 years, again with no expenses, saving every penny, to be worth what Jeff is worth today. And Homo sapiens have only been around for 300,000 years. And just in case these timeline examples aren't your thing, and if they aren't your thing, you probably stopped watching the video already because they're clearly my thing, but just in case, here's a different angle. If every person in the entire city of Seattle gave you $180,000, you would still not have as much money as Jeff. And while Jeff is literally at the extreme, someone worth only $1 billion is still brain-blasting levels of wealthy. That doctor would have to work 3,333 years to make $1 billion, which means they would have to start 8 years after the death of King Tut. And that median income person, 21,000 years. A sergeant in the Army, 28,000 years to make only $1 billion. I mean, am I crazy here? This is weird, right? This does not seem at all reasonable. And I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about economics, because I don't. But I will say that the rhetoric people use when defending the rich about how they worked hard and how they earned what they have, when you start thinking about these numbers, that is total bullshit. Nobody can reasonably be said to deserve or have earned $1 billion. Sure, many billionaires worked very hard to get what they have today. But did they work 3,000 years of doctors saving babies hard? Did they work 28,000 years of army sergeant hard? No, of course not. That's impossible. No one could do that. There's a belief I've seen floating around that in an ideal free market system, we'll all be put into a state of pure, untainted Darwinian competition, a survival of the fittest scenario where the fact that a person is wealthy is all the proof needed that they deserve to be wealthy. I don't know why I went British there, but that's what felt right. This is like a secular version of the prosperity gospel, which loosely equates material success with God's favor, and is very popular in American evangelical communities. And that might help resolve some of the apparent dissonance in the religious right's support for Donald Trump, who is also a follower of the prosperity gospel. And I'll put a link to some articles in the description if you want to read more about that, because it's really interesting. Now, I agree with free market Darwinists that in a pure free market system, the wealth will go to those who are most economically fit. But where we disagree is whether or not being economically fit means that a person is deserving of wealth, which I think that it doesn't. This is a really common misconception people have about what survival of the fittest implies broadly, but Darwinism has nothing to do with morality. Fitness isn't a moral state, whereas desert, not meaning like ice cream and cake, but meaning whether or not someone deserves something, is, I think, a moral state. If animal A is successful at surviving and reproducing, while animal B goes extinct, that doesn't mean that animal A deserves to live, while animal B deserves to die. Animal A just happens to be better suited for survival in their particular environment, which really comes down mostly to luck. For an example on that, you can see the peppered moths, which was this whole thing where during the Industrial Revolution, there used to be this kind of moth. Likewise, in a Darwinian pure free market, someone who makes a bunch of money doesn't deserve that money necessarily. They just happen to be more financially fit in the particular economic environment that they find themselves in. And this fitness includes a whole lot of stuff, like what kind of education they received, what kind of home life they had, how rich their parents were, whether or not they happen to suffer from societal prejudices that might make it harder for them to get hired or promoted, whether their uncle can get them a cushy summer internship because he was college roommates with the CEO of Goldman Sachs. That's not to say that the wealthy person didn't also work hard to get where they are, but that hard work was only part of the story. Plus, I tend to think that whether or not a person is even psychologically capable of working hard is just as coincidental as whether or not they were born rich or white, but that opens up a whole determinism versus free will thing that I am definitely not brave enough to get into right now. And maybe I will in a future video if I'm feeling a little feistier, but I'm not trying to make any kind of like really strong political point here. I have no idea what we're supposed to do about all these billionaires. I just mainly wanted to point out how absurd it is that billionaires exist at all. Again, the median American full-time worker would have to work for 2.8 million years to be worth as much as Jeff. And that's insane, or I think that's insane. And nobody else is talking about how insane that is. And why is nobody talking about this? Why do we just accept that it's all totally normal and cool for there to be billionaires? Is this just me? Am I missing something here? Maybe I'm the insane one? But look, what even is money? Anyway, I have no idea what money is. It makes no sense. What is anything? Does anything mean anything? Seriously, why are we all here? What is the point of all this? What is the point of all this?